Okay, let's get into it. What is agribusiness? The simplified definition is any business that is directly correlated to agriculture in any aspect. And when you think about agriculture, I don't just want you to think about crops, because unfortunately here in the Federation, most of the times when you hear about agriculture, you think mostly crops, but agriculture is vast, right? And we have the fisheries aspect of it, we have the bee aspect of it, we have the poultry aspect of it, we have the livestock aspect of it, and there's so many other areas that persons can tap into in agriculture that they can maximize and actually benefit from economically, right? So one of the definitions is simple and straight to the point, is the economic activities derived from or connected to farm products. In other words, crop and livestock production, as well as processing, transportation, and distribution. Agriculture and all its economic, social, and demographic derivatives, and a sector that has impact on practically all the sustainable development goals. According to the FAO, over 70% of the world's food needs are met by small farmers. Thus, investing in agriculture is not only one of the most effective strategies to improve food security and promote sustainability, but it is also essential to many countries' economic development, right? And we have a saying that if you woke up this morning and you ate, thank a farmer, right? And it doesn't matter what you eat, what you've eaten, and not just farmers, but thank your fishermen also. Thank your beekeepers. Thank the persons who transport these foods. Thank the person who processes these foods into other products, which would be where some of you are gearing towards. And it's not just about processing them into other products to be consumed or to be eaten or to be drunk, but if you pay attention to what's happening in the Federation, especially, you realize that a lot of persons are gearing towards holistic aspects with the use of herbs, making natural products, looking into what is called organic. And later in the market linkages section, when it comes to definitions, when we're talking about marketing, I'm going to break down specific definitions. One of them, you're going to see a lot of persons touting organic in the Federation, and I'm going to explain to you why that is not exactly 100% true. I don't think it's a case where these persons are trying to deceive the public, but there are certain things that has to be done before something can be certified as 100% organic. Okay? So here are some examples that we have of agribusinesses. And some of you may or may not already be participating in some of these. For those of you who are new and are looking for ideas, these might stir your brain. So we have urban agriculture. And urban agriculture is something that is happening in mostly the United States and the UK and other European countries that have densely populated cities with not a lot of ground places to have farms. And so what they have now are community gardens, or someone that might have lived close to an urban setting that has a larger space of land where they allow their neighbors, schools and so on to use it to grow food for the schools, food for elderly care, or food for those elderly and homeless persons. Okay, so you can look it up. Some of them have rooftop gardens, or they transform empty parking lots and they use that to help to feed the community. Even though it is here under agribusiness, most of the times these are charitable activities under urban agriculture. But there are areas or some places that will do like barter or trade. So that is why it falls under urban agriculture, right? And then we have farmers market vending, which is just a fancy term for a regular farmers market. that we have here that you attend on a Saturday morning, on a weekend, and you go and you buy your farm goods, your meats, your vegetables, and so on. Then natural oil processing, which is something that we see happening a lot now. We have Ojedi, we have Winiel, we have Shabina, I don't know, what's her name again? Trying to remember Shabina's business, and we have a lot of persons who are going into the natural oil processing, right? Herb growing, and an extension of the herb growing are actually those persons who are now making teas, right? Those persons who are making teas for different conditions. So we have calming teas and women's teas and hormonal teas and all these kind of things, right? Livestock feed manufacturing. We don't have much of that here in the Federation. The governments have discussed it at length, but no one has come forth to put down anything solid. And it is actually a viable means to gain profits, not just for the government, but for individual persons. When I was in Cayman going to school, what the government of Cayman does is that when farmers are cleaning their grounds, their lands, especially when it comes to things like corn and wheat material and rice material and so on, or just cutting regular grass and stuff like that, they would go around and collect it and process it and make it into silage. Thank you. Yes, native radiance. Yes, my brain fart. Long, blame it on the heat. Thank you. Right? And so what they used to do in Cayman, the government will go around, collect these, you will look at it and think it's trash, right? And then they go and process it and mix it with molasses and water. They make silage, or they dry them and they chip them up and they package them in bags, and they either sell them as mulch or resell them as feed, right? So it's something that can be done here. It's been spoken of, but it has not been done yet. Fruit growing, orchards, right? We here in Nevis, I'm not sure about Sinkit, but Nevis now has 2 established orchards, and the fruits from the orchards go to the agro-processing plant, right? The agro-processing plant does a very good job in making products such as purees, drink mixes, dried fruits, breadfruit chips, cassava chips, things along that line, smoothies, all these things. A nursery operation, and this is common, you've seen it before, you know, a lot of persons have set up nurseries. You go, you buy your seedlings or you buy your full-grown plants and you just transplant them, right? Chef or health food provider. Yes, that's a part of agribusiness too. So if you're into the culinary arts, but you're looking more into like the naturopathic path, you know, a lot of persons are going vegan and vegetarian. So there are persons that are popping up now that offer vegan and vegetarian options for those persons, because we know living down here, it is very difficult to find those options. And not only that, sometimes it's time consuming to prepare those types of foods, even though they are very good for us. Mushroom farming. I have one person here in Nevis, but that's a dude, that is actually trying to set up a mini mushroom farm. And his focus is to supply enough to the restaurants in high season, and looking at specific types of mushrooms that are not usually found in the supermarkets, like the portobellos and so on. You're looking at other tiger's mane and all these fancy types of mushrooms, right? And these mushrooms also can be factored into, you know, the vegan and vegetarian lifestyle if you're into that thing. Beekeeping. Right now, there's a beekeeping program that Jeff has sponsored. The Nevis Historical and Conservation Society is actually the overseer for that project. We have trained beekeepers in St. Kitts and Nevis. They formed a little organization, a little group on each island, and they're coming along quite nicely. They would have had their graduation ceremony in beginning of May. if my memory serves me right. And they get the equipment and everything else funded by the Jeff Fund, but through the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society. Farm sitting, this is a unique one. Farm sitting is similar to pet sitting. Now, I do pet sitting and I've also done farm sitting. What is farm sitting? That's when a farmer has to travel and needs someone responsible that knows about animals to take care of their livestock while they're traveling. And there's anyone that I know of in the Federation right now outside of myself that has done that. Obviously, you would have to have previous knowledge about the care of livestock. The livestock would have to be familiar with you. It's not a case where you could just show up on the morning that the farmer is leaving and expect that the cattle or the sheep and goat and pigs are going to listen to you, because guess what? They do know their owners. They know their owners. They know when to go out, when to come in, and so on. And it is tedious because if it's livestock, you know, you have to feed, you have to clean, you have to administer medications as needed and so on. So it's not anybody that can do something like that. But if you are into livestock and animals like that, and if you have your own farm that you're operating, it is easier to liaise with another farmer and help them take care of their livestock like that. And then we have agritourism farm. And agritourism is being practiced in St. Kitts right now at Eco Park, right? That's a big part of what they market, where persons come and, you know, they take in the park and then they eat the produce that's produced at the park. Honey production as an extension of the beekeeping, honey production and candle making, right? So you don't actually have to be a beekeeper to go into honey production. You can liaise with a beekeeper. And candle making, you can also liaise with a beekeeper to get your wax. Food delivery. Now with COVID, we realized that we have, you know, Uber Eats and Carib Eats and all these people that deliver food. It might not seem related, but I don't know if you remember during the peak of COVID when persons were doing the vegetable and the grocery delivery packages, where you could go online or make a call and they deliver your vegetables, your fruits and vegetables to you in a box. That is also agribusiness, right? Meat packing. If you have livestock or you're interested in this aspect, this one is a bit more time consuming and financially consuming, because you're going to need specific heavy equipment for meat packing. Not only that, regular inspections from the health department, and that can be a serious pain, especially when some inspectors come. Florists, that's an agribusiness. So if you like to do floral designs, if you like to make floral bouquets, all of that is an agribusiness. Spice production, organic farming, and I would have mentioned that before, so I'll give you details of organic farming when we come to the last presentation next week. Agriculture equipment rental. This is something that is happening now in Nevis. I'm not sure about St. Kitts, but there are persons who have bought tractors, chippers, and other equipment that can be used, rented by farmers to prepare their land, so they don't have to wait on agriculture department to come and till the land for them. They rent the equipment and they do it themselves. Potted plant sales, educational farming. Educational farming is basically where people pay you to teach them how to farm. Simple as that, right? We have people who train, but they don't get paid, right? So if it's something that you are interested in, maybe that can spark interest for some of you. Agriculture plot rentals. There are persons who have a piece of land just sitting down there. They're not planning to build on it, develop it, or anything else. And instead of having it there sitting down, they just lease out plots and they make a monthly income via that. And then obviously, as I would have mentioned before, personal care products. And trust me, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. You just have to Google and you're going to get overwhelmed, right? So this is just a handful. And I try to pick a few that most of you will be familiar with. but also that might be new to you for you to, go and investigate further if it piques your interest. Okay. All right. So now we have our first activity. And this is an interesting quote before we get into the activity. It says, ending gender inequity is not just the right thing to do, it is a smart thing to do, because FAO tells us giving women farmers access to the resources they need would lift up to 150 million people out of hunger. So this is why it's important, not just as a future agribusiness entrepreneur, but as a woman, that you understand the power that you have and you wield with just doing something simple as harvesting your tomatoes from your backyard and selling to your neighborhood, or circulating it and giving it to those who are in need. All right. So our first activity, right? Based on the definition of agribusiness and the industries listed as examples, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and then you can, not even 5 minutes, 3 minutes, right? Name 3 agribusinesses, may include crop or livestock, that can be found in St. Kitts and Nevis. List the positive contributions of that business and list the possible negative impacts of that business. You don't have to come up with the full 3, even if you find one, but give me a name of that business, kind of describe it, and then tell me something positive about it, and then tell me a possible negative impact. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes. It's like 6:25. So at 6:28, I'm going to come back in. Let's get some talking here. I need to hear you guys. You can also put your answers in the chat and I'll respond accordingly.
So we have a businesses in St. Kitts? And Nevis, man, what the name? You know they have something in half a tree.
You know, whatever it is, say it.
What's something? William got some birds. I don't figure the name. Yeah, I know. There's something done in half a tree. There's something in half a tree where they make lotion, that kind of thing. Think it's floral something association. And you got to say what positive or negative? My answer, Sheena. Half with somebody in half a tree. There's a St. Kitts Floral Association, and they what else they got? They have what is that? You know, our processing plant over with. Yeah.
Remember to mute your mics, please.
Dr. Louise, we have one hand up.
I'm waiting for a few more responses in the chat. I'm getting some good answers in the chat.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, all right. We got some good ones and we got the some repetitions of some of them, right? So I am going to call in no particular order. I'm going to call you and you're going to tell me why you chose that business and one positive thing about it and one negative possible thing about it. So let's go with Beryl. Hi, Beryl, how are you?
I'm okay. Good evening.
So why did you choose A1 Farms, and tell me something positive about it and something that couldn't positive,
A1
sorry, be
because
negative about it?
mine because of our previous lessons last week, which was where Maki was the facilitator. And something positive about the A1 Farms is that they always have fresh vegetables, lettuces, and cucumbers, and those things readily available. During the dry weather, rainy season, they always have. Hello,
Acting up. Yeah, sorry, my screen was acting up.
did you hear me?
Yes, I could hear you. Sorry, my screen was acting up.
Okay.
Okay, right. So that's good. So now I know Maki in his session, he would have indicated some things about his business that might have a negative impact. Do you remember any of them?
Negative impact?
Mm-hmm. Like if he's not careful, something that can negatively impact his business.
Like hurricanes and stuff like that? I know he said one time there was a hurricane and one of his structures came down.
Yes, so one of the negative issues about having a farm, unfortunately, and we're going to come later down to the discussion when we're talking about the challenges, is that environment, right? Especially when it comes to crop farming. If you are not careful and you don't practice sustainable practices, and you don't have a backup plan, something as simple as not even a hurricane, but a very heavy rainstorm can be devastating to you, right?
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that we don't have what is called farmers insurance here. It is something that has been discussed previously. Maki has brought it to the board along with some other farmers to the government to see if they could put something in place from a government standpoint, understanding that private institutions are not very welcoming and wary when it comes to ensuring businesses that are so vulnerable, okay? So they are more inclined to insure equipment though, right? And they would insure a structure. But when it comes to the losses that a farmer receives from a hurricane or drought and stuff like that, we do not have anything in place. So that is something that when you're going into your business, even if it's just simple garden farming, right? And you're looking to see how much input, financial input and time and labor that you've put in there, how do you recruit those when you have something that is out of control devastate your business? All right. So yes, hurricane, environmental factors are big on the list in terms of that. And also the negative impact. I'm not saying this about Maki because I know he's very careful when it comes to his business and his crops. It's unfortunate though that other farmers are not as careful. And this is where it comes to the use of chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers, and the overuse of them, right? And the overuse of them, unfortunately, goes into the crops themselves as residue, and we end up consuming them. Not only that, they seep down into the water table. And when they seep down into the water table, then they contaminate our water sources. And this is something that is very concerning, especially with the high rate of cancer that we've been seeing in recent years. And one of the links to the high rate of cancer, unfortunately, is due to the residues that are found on our food sources. And that is why we say that when you purchase your vegetables and your fruits, you have to be careful. Yes, you wash them and you might soak them in the vinegar and water and baking soda and everything else. But sometimes, depending on the particular type of crop too, the residues might be inside of them also. Okay, and this is why there is now a push towards more natural and or organic farming, right? So very good, very good. Thank you for your contribution. Okay, a hand was up to the person whose hand was up. Can I get your input? I'm not seeing it right now. My screen is not showing me some things.
Hi.
Okay, hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. Now let's get into it. What do you have for me?
All right. There's a place in St. Kitts. It's called Sugartown Organics.
Yes.
They provide natural ingredients, local agriculture, combined with high performance evidence of things that can make your skin look better. You can get better health, hair growth, and so forth. So they base the positive in that is that they're using natural herbs, fruits, or vegetables in their unique blend and actually help us instead of going to the pharmaceutical route. You use the natural stuff that she provides in the bottles with shampoos and so forth. So that's a positive contribution there.
Mm-hmm.
Then the negative, I would think, is that things that are out of season, like for example, if she used like mangoes and so forth, that would be a negative impact for her, because if she has a mango tree and there is monkeys around, they use up all the mangoes by eating them or go by other farms and eating mangoes. I'm thinking that would be a negative there.
Yes.
Because, you know, she don't have nothing there.
Yes.
Then another one is the smoothie business. There's a business called KL Blends where they use as much natural fruits as possible to provide a healthy lifestyle for persons who don't want to eat meat or starch. So that's positive there. The negative is basically the same with the other persons, where you have monkeys and weather, and as you mentioned, chemicals and so forth, if they are buying from other local stores and vendors.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought up that. I'm glad you brought up that, because one moment, please. Just a side note, unfortunately, SKN has taken power off in Sandy Point, and so some of the participants, we may have lost them, including our facilitator, Ms. Duncan, but we'll continue. We'll continue. All right, and they'll join us when they can get back on. Okay, but yes, continuing. Yes, you made a very good point in that if you have an agribusiness and you have someone that is providing you with the source to run your business, the ingredients, and you want to promote your business as being natural or organic and healthy, you have to know how that person produces those products before you get them, right? And I always recommend to people, if you are sourcing materials, if you're sourcing raw materials, go to the farm, see what's going on there. Look to see what chemical, if they're using chemicals, what chemicals they're using. Research the chemicals they're using. Do you want that in your product? Right? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to have something that you're touting as natural and healthy and organic, and then there are chemicals and so on in there that can cause a reaction in someone's body, or, you know, hasten the process of them being sick if they're already vulnerable. So that is very, very important, right? And I want you guys to keep that in mind, because when we come further down into how agribusiness works, the model, you're going to see that it's a chain effect, right? And you can either be at the beginning, or you can be in the middle, or you can be at the end, or you can be all. Now, do I recommend that you be all? I mean, sure, if you have the finances and the labor and the space and so on, and you want to be the person who decides, okay, I'm going to make ketchup, and I have my own tomato farm. So I'm producing my own tomatoes, and I have my own manufacturing, agro-processing setup right here, so, and my own labeling and my own marketing, then you can do that, right? But it's not everyone can do that. Some persons are better at making stuff, right? So some persons are not good farmers. They can't raise a goat or a sheep to save their life. They don't have a green thumb, right? Or they don't want to be dealing with the dirt and the muck and all that kind of thing associated with these things. So they prefer to buy from other people, but they're very good at making things, right? So you also have to be realistic about what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and you work in accordance with that. All right, so thank you for your contribution. All right, let's see. Heather Liebert, I want to hear about Vanilla Paradise, please. Let's see about it. Heather,
hello.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Yes. All right.
Yeah,
Let's see about Vanilla Paradise.
Yeah, sorry. I chose Vanilla Paradise because it's unique, the only farm in the Federation, and they produce organic vanilla. So I think that's a positive thing. And the negative, I would say it takes a long time to produce, 36 months.
Yep.
So yeah, that's it.
Yes. And I like the fact that you said that the time, right?
Yeah.
Especially, and another thing, for example, those persons who make soaps from scratch, you would know that there's a curing period, right? And so when you have products like vanilla, or soaps that have to be cured, or meat products that have to be dried and so on, you have to take into consideration how is that going to affect your production model in terms of having products ready when the clients want, right? So you're always going to have to be in a constant state of production to ensure that while one batch is curing or drying and so on, that you have something, you have something that is just going in, something that's almost done, and things that are ready to go out. So it's always a continuous process, because if you fall back now and you don't have the middle, and you just, you know, sell everything that you've just produced, and you're now going to make a fresh batch, there's this lag period where you could be making money, but you're not making money, because now you have to wait, right, for that product to cure and dry and everything else before you can process it to go to market to be sold. All right, so that's a very, very important point that you pointed out there, and thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
Right. Growbox. Let's say about Growbox. Daniela Ortiz Battaglia, if I hope I pronounced that correctly. and not butcher your name. Forgive me. Daniela, are you there? Okay, and maybe she got knocked off. All right, we'll move to another one. Hold on. Tracy, let's hear about your contribution. Hi, Miss Fraser.
I'm coming. Hello, can you hear me? I had to take off the fan and shut down the window. Okay. I'm not much of a farmer.
That's okay.
I'm a farmer's wife. So I'm the one that deals with the watering and the picking, but I'm gonna get into it more. What I wanted to say, there's a place called God's Creation in the artisan village in Nevis. She's a small entity and she makes local teas, chili sauce. She's very, very creative. Her items are very unique and they are well made, well packaged, or most of them are organic. However, the only problem that I have with her is her marketing and her ability to do mass production, even on a small quantity, because I work in tourism, so we have to buy these stuff. She can't do a lot. And her marketing, she needs help on the marketing side. So you have persons that can do the farming and all of that, but to get their stuff out there and sold, that's the problem. That's the only problem.
Yes.
And that's for most of our local businesses.
Yes, I was just going to add, yes. Unfortunately, marketing is one of the bigger problems that we have. And that's why I said a while back that you can be at the beginning of production, the middle, or the end, right? But if you try to do it all, you have to make sure you have all your bases covered. As solo entrepreneurs, sometimes you get so caught up in making the product that you don't have the time now to do proper marketing. Not only do you not have the time, but you might not actually have the financial resources, right, to find somebody to help you do the marketing. So there are ways of which we can utilize technology and social media, especially because when it comes to marketing, it's, I forgot the percentage, I think it's 5% of persons respond to paper media marketing, 10% to radio, and right now about 20 to 25% to social media, 15% to email, and 20%, another 20% to WhatsApp, I guess, or texting, however you want to do it, WhatsApp blasts, email blasts, stuff like that. So if you're in that type of position, it's best to look at what is the most cost-effective, but yes, easiest way to market. And how can you utilize your client base also to market for you? Because a lot of the times here in the Federation, we buy stuff and we know it's good, but we don't tell other people it's good unless someone asks us about something specifically, right? We're not good with spreading the word, right? I think it's more of a local phenomenon. The reason why I say that, from my personal business experience, I do have local clients. I have a lot of local clients, right? But my local clients will not tell another local about me unless something specific happens, okay? As opposed to my non-national clients who, regardless of what, they would just meet somebody and be like, oh, you know, my dog needed grooming and it was really messy, and so I just called Kamara and let her do it. Right? And they would just be up and down. And you know how they are, they talk a lot, right? And we are not like that with each other's businesses. And sometimes incentives help. So you would realize like persons like Ojedi, Yafin, Native Radiance and so on, they started doing a lot of push towards marketing incentives. If you recommend certain persons or a number of persons, you get this discount and stuff like that. So it does not have to be something major, like full-on TV ad or radio ad and stuff like that, but it's little things that push into the niche that you need to be, right? And once you find your niche and you've hit in that market, it's much easier. And that way now, when you add on stuff like social media or maybe a WhatsApp blast or email blast or text blast and so on, it makes it easier and it contributes to your marketing plan. And you don't need to be exorbitant, like I said. And yes, Sherry-Ann, you are correct. Native Shobena is awesome with with her marketing, and she doesn't do a lot, just simple things that she does. All right, Jody, welcome. Yes, I'd like to have your contribution.
Sorry, teacher. I'm sorry for being late.
That's okay. That's okay. You're perfectly understood.
But I realize you're right up my alley. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry. And so I am going to volunteer myself to be used as the test dummy for class. Yes. So as one of the things that I do, I guess this would be agro-processing.
Yes.
I make local drink, right? Sometimes I plant the stuff, like right now I have sorrel planted with the intention that I will get them, coming closer to Christmas time and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of where are you asking, like what I do in terms of the marketing?
No, we were asking about different businesses that agribusiness, and something positive about it and something negative about it. So you can use your business as the example and tell us about the positive and then the negative.
Okay, the positive is in terms of what I do, well, this aspect of what I do, I use a lot of local fruits. So the positive and the negative will overlap in the sense that when you have an abundance of a particular fruit, you have it there. What I do is I purchase a freezer. So I have storage space to I would freeze the fruits, cut them up, freeze them, and then I have them, in that type of way. But then the negative now is that, when you run out of fruits, you can't continue a particular drink.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I'm in that position now where I run out of stock, so to speak, and I have to basically wait for that fruit to come around again and that type of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say that is negative and positive.
Okay, yeah, and that is similar to what other similar businesses have indicated, especially when you're dealing with seasonality.
Yeah.
Seasonality is a big problem.
Yeah.
And storage, and if you don't have proper storage, and not only that, even when you do have proper storage and you thought that you've stored up enough, I mean, unfortunately, you know how Skelec and Nevlec are.
Yeah.
And you have your freezer and you think that you have your stuff there good, and power goes out and then it spoils your batch of stuff. And if it's already out of season, then that makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, and then this is where now you start to consider, okay, maybe I should get a generator and so on, but then generators are so expensive. Right. And this is something too that I think well, it has been done through grants, but unfortunately, as we know how things are in the Federation, when things come around via grants and things are being handed out like greenhouses and generators and water tanks and so on, it's only certain people, right, that benefit from it, and it's unfortunate. And I think one of the things that Helen's Daughters is working on is trying to rally government to put things in place to help the small farmers, especially the women.
Yeah.
right? Because when you look at it, when you look at it demographically speaking, even though we have a lot of male farmers, whether it's crops, whether they are fishermen, whether they're beekeepers, or whether it's livestock, they don't do a lot of production, right? It's mostly the women that are doing the production. And we have an increase in women farmers, fishermen, and everything across the board in every aspect of agriculture, even in areas that they were not traditionally, they are now in, right? And so if we are now the gatekeepers of the raw materials down to the products that are being put on the shelves, then we need the support. You understand? And simple things like a generator. It doesn't have to be a big generator or anything, but something that can keep a freezer running, you know, when power goes out, right? For those of you who have backyard gardens and, you know, suffer from water shortages and stuff like that, you know, a tank, a water tank, right? And all those kind of things, right? Okay, yes, thank you for your contribution. Sherry Ann had a question. Lots of people advertise local drinks as fresh. Can frozen fruits still be classified as fresh, even in off season for fruits? I see people with drinks from those fruits claiming they are fresh. Okay, scientifically speaking, yes, but it depends on how those fruits were prepared before they were frozen. Okay, some people might do a light blanching and freeze them. Then technically speaking, it's not fresh. But if you blend it up, puree it or whatever it is, as soon as you get it, and then package it and freeze it, then it's considered fresh. I hope that answers your question. All right, good. And I have had, unfortunately, we can't go through all the suggestions here, but I'm glad that you guys are thinking along the same lines and you've gotten good examples and your contributions are good, and you can see where we are heading in terms of the discussion, in terms of, you know, what an agribusiness, the challenges that you might face. All right. Okay, moving on. So this is the agribusiness system that I would have indicated earlier. And there's the input sector, the production sector, and the processing manufacturing sector. All of them overlap, okay? And like I said before, you decide if you want, if you want to be a part of all the components. Once again, do I recommend it? Not really, unless you are so fortunate that you have a big farm and you have the space to do your production, and then you have a space that you do your processing, and then you take them to market directly, right? It can be very time consuming. Even though we feel that we are super women, we are not. We have families, we have children to take care of, all other things work. A lot of us work, and this is just something that we do on the side to make extra income, hoping that at some point in time it can pop off and we can make a living off of it and tell the main job bye-bye. Right? Unfortunately, in these times, having a second source of income is no longer a luxury, it's a requirement in order to survive in our economy, right? And so you have to look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, look at your passions. Thank you. That's okay, Daniela. That's all right. Right, so you have to look at what you are most capable of. And unfortunately, and I've seen it right here in Nevis, that there are some persons who want to be all over and doing too much. They have a good business idea. They have part of it or most of it, either the input, the production, or the processing, but they want to do everything across the board. And what that does is takes away focus from what could be their strength. All right. And so they want to do farming, and then they want to do hair care products, and then they want to do skincare, and they want to do teas, and then they want to do all other kinds of things all over the place, instead of focusing on one thing, bringing that to fruition, and then building off the progress and the profit of that first thing and moving forward. Okay. Now, if you have support, family support, labor, people working for you, and you can do more than one thing comfortably without taking away your attention from another aspect, then do so. But if you do not, then I highly recommend that you focus on one aspect. Okay? So if you are more skilled with making a product, for example, if you are more skilled with making the fruit juices, right? And you are not into planting the trees and harvesting it from your garden and everything like that, and you're buying from someone else, that's perfectly fine, right? Just understand that when you're purchasing your resources, that you have to put in that cost into your budget in terms of what your profit margin is expected to be. Obviously, if you're buying a bag of mangoes for $10 and you make 10 bottles of mango juice, you're not going to sell those 10 bottles of mango juice for $1 each. It doesn't make economic sense, obviously, right? You're going to have to also factor in the sugar, right? The bottle, the shipment of the bottles, the labor, the electricity, right? The water, all those things, right? So if you are stretched out in where your focus is, and you are focusing on input and producing, then as Tracy would have indicated previously, you might falter in areas such as marketing, right? But if you have someone that can do the marketing for you, even if it's a teenage son or daughter that knows about social media and stuff like that, or a friend or a family member, right, that knows about these things, that can put out something for you on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is, right, then you do that. Right now, we are fine. There are few persons, and there are women that are starting to do like mini marketing for persons who want to get their businesses started and flowing. And there's not costly, at least, well, right now they're not costly because they're just starting out, they're just building up their clientele. But you know, they manage the social media aspect of it and so on, send out emails or WhatsApp blasts, and take pictures of the products, post them. They do what you call scheduled postings. So they would sit down and you would have your product and take a picture of every product, have a description, price, availability, where you could find them, all that good stuff, and put them in a file on Instagram or Facebook and put a schedule next to them. And you don't even have to turn back and look at them after you put them in. They just post accordingly to your schedule. So one of them gonna post today, another one gonna post tomorrow, all of them at the same time, and you just sit back and you let it do its thing, right? So it is important when you're looking at the components that you understand where you are in the lineup, right? And where you want to be. If you're comfortable where you are in the lineup and you're just in one section, and you have a minor overlap, not a problem. But if you're going to spread yourself out, make sure that you have the right support and the financial means to do so without burning out yourself, understanding that you also have other responsibilities and most likely another job, okay? If you're going to go all in and this is your only focus, go all in and have this as your only focus, understanding that there are risks involved. And everything will have a risk, right? We're not going to do it thinking, you know, we're just gonna put out the product, and as soon as the product put out the product on day one, everybody is going to run and take it up. Especially in St. Kitts Nevis, in the Federation, we know persons are slow to pick up on a product, but once it's good, you'll get a following. But one shady little thing and you lose it, okay? So you have to be very conscious when you're thinking about which part of the sector that you want to be in and what your strengths and weaknesses are. Okay? All right. So now let's discuss this now. Here is a breakdown of agribusiness products, right? Simple diagram. Y'all would see this and be like, oh yeah, we know this. We deal with this every day when we go to the supermarkets or we go to the farmers markets and everything else, right? Agribusiness products are split in two: crops, livestock. On the livestock, even though when you hear livestock, you think cattle, sheep, goat, pigs. Livestock also includes bees and fish, okay? Poultry, ducks, all those kind of stuff, anything animal related, okay? To be simple. And then crops, you know what that is. For each one of them, you would have perishable goods and you would have long life goods. So what's the difference? Perishable goods, they are the ones that have a short shelf life. Okay, so for example, those persons who make the juices or who cook food, you know, who make the purees and so on, they are perishable, meaning that they have a short shelf life. Long life now, long life are those things that are preserved or have preservatives in there, right? Perishables can also be frozen, meaning that if it's not frozen and you leave it out, it's going to spoil. All right, so raw products, the fresh products, especially whether it's fresh fruits or vegetables or meat, if you leave them outside, they are going to go bad, right? But long life usually entails some kind of preservative measure. So it's whether it's either adding a preservative or it's drying them out to increase long life, okay? So for the livestock part, I mean, an example could be long life would be jerkies. You know, the beef jerkies, the turkey jerky, and stuff along that line that is dried out, okay? Canned products, those things that can be on the shelf for a longer period of time, or extended period of time, or bottled preservatives. When it comes to crops, long life, bottled preservatives, jams, jellies, those kind of things, all right? On the perishable, you see respiring and non-respiring. Respiring meaning is fresh out the ground, fresh off the tree. Non-respiring means that it's already been slightly processed, but it does not have a long shelf life. Basically, you cook it, but it doesn't last long, all right? Perishable, fresh, chilled, and frozen. We already know that if you don't, when it comes to, well, the only thing here that would have an extremely long shelf life in its natural state would actually be honey, okay? Honey has a very long shelf life, up to hundreds of years. I think I was reading an article the other day where they found a jar of honey in one of the Egyptian tombs and it was still good. I don't know how they knew it was still good, but I wouldn't risk it, but they said it was still good. Right? So what are the most important components of an agribusiness system? Right? The most important component of the agribusiness system is not from what this slide I showed you before. The most important component is your idea. Okay? It is what you have in your brain, the thing that you want to do. That is your starting point. Because based on that idea, you would know whether you are input, you are production, or you are manufacturing. All right? And if you were to develop an agribusiness, which section would you be involved in and why? So I'm going to need your input for this particular question, right? If you were to develop an agribusiness, I want you to tell me. Just put it in the chat. If you were to develop an agribusiness, would you be input, production, or manufacturing, agro-processing? Okay? And why? And be honest. If you say it's just easier just to sit down in the kitchen and make your hot sauce, as opposed to planting the peppers and harvesting them, perfectly fine, right? And then the last question, which areas of an agribusiness are women mostly involved in and why? So I'm gonna give you like 2 to 3 minutes. Give me your responses in the chat and we'll go through them. So I just want you to give me input for the last 2. If you want to give me your idea, you could give me your idea also. If you have an idea, if you haven't started working on something yet, then you're perfectly fine to share it if you feel comfortable. Okay, so let's get those responses coming in. All right, I'm waiting for responses. If you were to develop an agribusiness, what section? Let's see them in the chat. Not seeing any responses. Okay, I'm liking the responses. I'm liking the responses so far, right? I like Valerie's response. Crop production, I don't have time for anything else. Yes, Valerie, and you can do that and then sell your produce to someone now who can make a product from them. So that's perfectly fine, perfectly fine. Okay, very good, Beryl. I understand that. Yes. Sometimes you produce something and you don't want them staying on you. You grow something and you don't want them staying on you, you know, for a long period of time. So you have to get creative. All right, Desiree. Yes, I like the fact that you have 1 goat and hopefully you will get more. And it gives light to your passion. That is very good. All right. Okay, good. So I'm going to go through a few of these. And as per usual, not be specific, you know, just randomly go through and pick you. All right, Cynthia, Miss Brazier, right. Let's talk about your contribution in terms of the areas where women are mostly involved in and why, right? And then you said production, right? Why you chose production? Cynthia, you there? Hello? You don't want to speak? Okay, let me go to somebody else. Maybe she's having some technical difficulties because I understand how that is. Okay, Monifa, let's hear about you and broiler chickens in Nevis, because that is a very interesting one.
Good night, everyone. So, most farmers do layers, and we really don't have boilers. Those are the meat chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And they import foreign chicken, and most times you see those big leg quarters, and I'm sure everybody knows that we don't get such big actual chicken, so we don't even know what they actually put in those foreign chicken.
Exactly.
So I think that will be something that's really a need in St. Kitts and Nevis.
And I am glad you brought it up, because there's I'm very glad you brought it up, because there's actually plans in the works to have a broiler production facility put in place up by the prospect next to the abattoir.
Yeah, I know about it. I know of it.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes, good. So and that's just to inform the others, just in case someone else might be thinking along the same line as you. Right, so I'm glad that you brought it up, and you are correct. You are very correct in that we import too much, and one boat stopped coming and we salt, basically, right? So it's not just about not knowing what's in the food that we import, but also being self-sufficient in that if anything were to happen, like a storm or something that would affect production in the United States, one of the main importers that we have down here, that we are not direly affected by it, right? And it's important to know. I like to know where my food come from, right? Being in agriculture, has exposed me, and I've been exposed from since a young child to know where my food comes from, right? Because I grew up in an agricultural environment, right? And when you know where your food comes from and the process and so on, you feel better about what you eat, and what you eat is even better for you because now you know what you're putting in your body, right? And it's unfortunate that a lot of the hormonal changes that we are seeing now, especially in our youth, have been linked to a lot of chemicals and hormones that are in the processed foods that are imported, right? And not just the processed foods, but the fruits and vegetables and so on that are imported also. Because let me tell you about, say, an apple, right? The apple that is imported from the United States. When it is picked off of the tree, it is not fully ripe. It is sprayed with a chemical. I don't know if you all realize that when you all get the apples, it has a waxy film on it, right? It is sprayed with a chemical that actually slows down the maturation process, because a regular fruit, we all know here in the Caribbean, once you go and you pick a fruit from off the tree, if you don't consume it within a few days, it's going to rot. I mean, especially in the heat and so on, right? The benefit is that our fruits and vegetables, they're healthier, depending on the type of fruit and or vegetable, they might last longer too. I don't know if you register those imported fruits and vegetables, and even the meat stock, when they come here, if you have it down on the table for a day or two, they already start to go bad as opposed to the local stuff, right? And the reason is that the length of time that they have been harvested, from the time they are harvested to the time that they reach here, they would have been treated with certain chemicals to create a quote unquote longevity of that product before it reaches our shelves. Okay? And we then have to go now and do, you know, the vinegar and the baking soda soap to get all these things off the fruits and everything else before we can consume them, as opposed to going out in your backyard or going to the market and buying something that has been produced here locally, right? So as you said before, most of the poultry farmers that we have here are layers. A few of them do quote unquote broiler, but not with the broiler birds. They slaughter their laying birds and they sell the meat. That meat obviously would not be of as high quality, right? The reason why a lot of farmers go towards the layers is that having layers are easier and you have a quick turnaround of input and finances, where it's quicker for you to make a profit off of eggs than it is off of growing broiler birds, because broiler birds are more intensive in terms of you have to know when they hatch, their weight, what to feed them, the growing weight, the feed, the type of feed to feed them to get a specific growing weight, and a whole other length of things that's too much to this. That's a whole different class. That's a whole different class, right? But it's more time consuming and labor intensive and financial inclusive. It takes more money than layers. So that's why a lot of persons run away from broilers, right? But it's not impossible. It is not impossible, and with the right guidance also, right? So it is something that you can look into and start small. I tell they have I've consulted with quite a few persons who want to do broiler production, and I always encourage them to start small, see where it goes, because the last time someone here in Nevis that I know of attempted to do broiler production, they wanted to go big one time, and they ended up having a huge financial loss, and it took a long time for them to recover. And when they recovered, it's like, okay, well, I am not going to go into this again. So they went into layers, and that is how they recouped they recoup their monies, well, most of it, right? Okay, so Celdine, okay, yes, I went to the first broiler meeting, then I saw today that they had an actual training. They didn't take any contact information from us, and I still don't see where they're advertising the training on the, Yep, unfortunately, yep, that is a big problem, communication. And they only communicate, unfortunately, having worked in agriculture department, I can tell you this as a fact, they communicate with who they want to communicate with, and you would hear this information by the wayside as you have a discussion with somebody, and they might just bring it up, right? And it's not just with agriculture, the same thing happens for fisheries too. It's a huge problem, right? And it's something that we need to be proactive about. And what I tell people is insert yourself in that space. If it's something that you want to do and you want more information about and you're passionate about and you want to get into it, hound them for the information, right? Run them down. Even if you don't get an invitation to a training, whatever it is, show up. Let them see that you are there, okay? Right, so thank you for that contribution. You have a very good point, right? Most of you, I'm looking through, most of you want to be in either the front end or the back end, right? It's either you want to be the producers or you want to be the manufacturers, which is where the agro-processing, such the making of the products are. So at least you are aware, which is very good. At least you're aware of what your strong points are, and you have good ideas, and you understand where your idea places you in that model, okay? And yes, you are going to have some overlap, but it should not be to the extent where you overexert yourself physically and financially, okay? All right, moving on. Okay, so models. Here we have an agribusiness development model. For each agribusiness, there are key stakeholders depending on the complexity of the system. The model that is utilized will be dependent on your end goal. All right. So your end goal basically would be, okay, your model, your end goal, for example, could be, okay, I have a tomato farm, I'm producing tomatoes. At the end of the first quarter, I would like to produce maybe 10 crates of tomatoes for sale over that period of time, right? That would be your end goal. How would you get to that end goal, right? You would have to know, assess your environment, your soil, look at the weather patterns and so on, and what equipment you need, if you're going to use chemicals, what type of chemicals you're going to use, what kind of agriculture system. Are you going to go hydroponics for your tomatoes? Are you going to have a drip irrigation process for your tomatoes? Are you going to use containers? Are you going to just have a field of tomato plants? All of those things would affect your end goal. All right, because based on that, that is what is going to determine how you get to your having your 10 crates of tomatoes at the end of that first quarter, right? So on this example, and this is just one example of an agribusiness development model, you have number one, focus on market demand and value chain analysis. What does that mean? Okay, so you've decided that you don't want to just have a little backyard garden for you and your family anymore. You want to start selling. Okay. But do you have someone to sell to? Right? And this is an important question because a lot of persons start businesses in general without assessing if there's a market for what they're going to be producing and wanting to sell. You can't just get up. Well, I mean, you could, but I wouldn't advise it that you just get up one day and you're like, you know what? I'm going to sell soap. I'm just going to stand up on the side of the road and sell soap. And you're going to be there and person's going to pass you with the soap. One or two persons might come and query and ask you what type of soap. Somebody might pity you and buy maybe one bar of soap. But then are you really selling the soap to a market, or you're selling it because you feel like you just want to sell something and stand up on the side of the road, right? Are you making these things because you have a passion for them and it's a hobby and you just like doing it? So if somebody buys something, yeah, and if they don't, it doesn't matter? Or are you doing it so that you can make a little extra income to add to your household income or your personal income, right? So we always recommend that you do something called a market analysis, okay? Find out if there are persons who are willing to buy what you want to sell. How do you do this? Simple. Go around your community, have conversations. If you're at work, you have a conversation. Hey, if I brought in banana bread on a Friday, every Friday, would you buy banana bread from me? And if they say, yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I make banana bread. You want to try a sample? And you go and you make a sample of banana bread and you have everybody taste it and be like, whoa, this is awesome banana bread. Well, yeah, every Friday I bring a banana bread. I want a banana bread. I want a banana bread. And that is very simple research that you've done there. Nothing detailed. You don't have to have a big sheet of paper with questions, asking people questions about your product and stuff like that. That can be very time consuming and stuff like that. You can be in church and be like, hey, I have my tomato garden and I'm producing more tomatoes than I can handle at home. You guys want to buy tomatoes from me? on a Sunday after church, so you could go home and have them in your salad for your with your Sunday meal and stuff like that. And someone might be like, next Sunday you come with maybe a 1 bag of tomato, or you make up a little salad or something, a sample, and you hand them up with the tomatoes and be like, boy, these tomatoes sweet, boy, they're good. That's a form of market research, right? At least you know after that you have a certain set of people who are willing to buy what you are going to make, right? A lot of times, persons are doing a hobby. For example, they might make hot sauce at home just for the family, and they might give it out to friends as a gift or whatever it is. And the friends might be like, ooh, this is some good hot sauce. And then they might give another friend, and they but boy, this is good, you know, where you get this from? And then somebody be like, oh, you're making it, you don't sell? And then boom, bam, bam, you have your market. And you've done your market research without even knowing that you've done your market research, because now persons are coming to you for something that you do as a hobby that you can now make money off of. All right. So when you hear terms like market demand and value chain analysis, don't get tied up in the business word etymology of it, right? Don't get frightened about it, right? It's just simply saying, do you have somebody, or do you have people who are willing to buy what it is you're willing to make to sell? Simple as that, right? 2, technical training. You have production, processing, hygiene, and food safety standards, marketing, business development. These are things that you can do on your own. YouTube. If you want to learn anything these days, you can go on YouTube. Perfect example, Shabana for Native Radiance during COVID lockdown. She did most of her training online. First, she started on YouTube. She was looking at videos. She was getting information. And then she looked up training websites and so on, that she can verify that they are actual, you know, persons with certified training that she could learn from. She paid a little change for some of them, and she got trained, and she just built off of that, right? So you don't have to go off to college or university. You don't have to wait for the government to say, oh, that they're having a workshop, must come and stuff like that. The information is there. The information is right out there on the World Wide Web that you can look it up. But just make sure that when you're looking up these things, that you can verify that they are actual reliable persons who know what they're saying and doing, because you don't want to go and watch a YouTube video and go and do something and then say you're selling it, and then people start to get sick off of it. Right? That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Okay, and we're trying to make money, not spend money. Even though you have to spend money to make money, we want to make more money. All right, number 3, increase financial services and market access to targeted producers, processors, and exporters. Now, this is more of a private sector issue, and I'm going to come to this more in detail with the market linkages presentation next week. But as I would have indicated before, private institutions, specifically banks, are very much hesitant to give loans to persons in the agriculture, agribusiness sphere. Why? Because it is very volatile, right? Especially farmers, those persons who have farms, whether it's a livestock farm. One moment, please. Sorry, minor technical difficulty. My apologies. Yes, so I was saying, right? The banking institutions are very hesitant. And not only are they hesitant, they are sexist. And I like to give this example of one lady that I did a proposal for. She wanted to start making products at home, you know, guava cheese, that kind of stuff there. And she wanted to get some equipment, a small loan, about $5,000. Nothing much, nothing fancy, nothing exorbitant. You would think that is easy peasy lemon squeezy. But the particular institution that she took the proposal to was giving her problems and questioning her and her abilities as to, you know, make the products and whether she know about finances and all these very intrusive and I would call offensive questions, actually, right? And she got frustrated. She got frustrated and she was like, I don't know what to do. So I'm like, okay, let's change some of the information on the proposal. And instead of putting your name, let's put your husband's name on it. And surprise, surprise, they got the loan, right? Easy peasy. I guess the person at the bank thought that her husband was more capable than her. But even though the husband brought in the proposal, it was still the wife that got the monies to start her business, right? And it is something that it's hopefully not as common as it used to be, but is still prevalent, right? And this is where now you have to start to seek out grants, right? And take advantage of your quote unquote local banks. And when I say local banks, I don't mean Bank of Nevis and National Bank because they, no. So banks like Development Bank, credit unions, they are the banks that are more willing to risk on farmers and agribusiness ideas, right? Another area is to look for investors. So you would do a proposal, you know, have your executive tongue-tied, have your executive summary, have your projections, have your cash flow statement, have your invoices if you already purchased stuff. And this is where keeping proper records is, how should I say, keeping proper records would be a lifesaver when you're doing things like applying for grants or small grant loans or looking for investors. And there are a lot of areas like SIDU. SIDU is one of them too. SIDU is also very good. And right now SIDU and in the Syncits too, they are very much in stream in pushing and supporting women entrepreneurs, right? And so these are institutions that you can look into to see how you can get your business funded. And yes, Maki put in there, yes, NCCU has farmers loans now at 6%. And trust me, with the other rates that are existing, that's a very good deal, right? And I have also done proposals that have been sent into credit union and they have been approved, right? Very good rates, very understanding in terms of understanding that the type of business, you know, a month you might make enough to pay off, to pay your loan payment, and another month things might not be so good, but you call in and you tell them and they make arrangements and they work with you, right? So there are areas and avenues out there that you can get financial access and assistance from outside of looking at one of those larger financial institutions and major banks. All right, number 4, right, results. Higher yields, improve product quality, and increase sales and revenues. So everything is in a cycle here, right? When you move from one to the next, to the next, to the next, right, in an orderly fashion, most times you can yield the benefit of your idea, and you can reach or meet your goals. Understanding that failure is a part of the process. Everybody goes into business thinking that, yeah, I'm going to be this big success off the bat. And it doesn't work like that sometimes. And I can attest my own personal story. When I first started my business in 2016, I was falling flat on my face for a good time before things finally popped off in maybe late 2017, early 2018, right? And for me, fortunately, COVID provided some opportunities where my business really moved off. So sometimes when you see things from the outside as looking like an obstacle, you have to examine it and see where you can find an opportunity in that obstacle to move forward, right? And the more you do that, if you do have a failure, it's easy to bounce back from that. Okay. All right, challenges. And I would have mentioned some of these before, and you would have heard about these in general conversations just outside of agribusiness, right? So changes in consumer taste, right? For example, let me tell you about the banana bread. The banana bread that you are selling to everybody on a Friday at your office and your other office places about and everything else. Next thing, some stupid article comes out and says, bananas are not healthy. They contain too much sugar, right? And then everybody decides that, oh, we don't want all that sugar in our food, so we don't want any more banana bread. And then now you're gonna be like, okay, do I still keep making banana bread or just do I stop? How do I combat this, right? And the best way to combat this is what? Say bananas have natural sugars in them, but they're not the type of the unhealthy sugars. Take out the unhealthy sugars and find a substitute, right? Maybe honey or stevia or something like that. But understanding that that change might not just affect your pocket, because it might be more expensive, but it might also affect the actual taste or quality of your product. And obviously, financial is a huge challenge, okay? And I would have just mentioned before what some of those financial challenges are. Natural disasters, we would have discussed that already. So, and this is where I was talking about, you know, there was talk on the table about having an insurance policy put in place for persons in the agribusiness sector, right? From the farmers come all the way down to persons who make the products and the agro-processors, to have some kind of assurance that if something does happen, right, that they can recoup some of their monies and it will not be a complete loss. Climate change. It's a huge right now. And everybody is feeling the heat. Literally, we can feel the heat on a daily basis, right? We have now gone from a set wet season and a set dry season, and then we have the hurricane season. Now we have extended periods of drought, right? We have very harsh rainy seasons and coming right after the drought, which means that the soil is not ready to absorb all that moisture at once, which leads to mudslides and loss of fertile topsoil and stuff like that. Hurricanes are becoming more intense, right? And they last longer. The heat is affecting animals and crops. So which means you have to have more water sources. You have to look into alternatives from just using the government source. So you have to have water holdings, tanks, and all these things, right? Public and government policies. These can affect your agribusiness in terms of specifically, and you're going to hear this a lot, and if you haven't experienced it, you will, taxes. Especially when it comes to importing stuff for your business. The customs duties are ridiculous, right? we as in persons would source things that are necessary that cannot be found in the Federation to push their business, packaging and all this kind of stuff there. By the time, even if it's cost effective to order them, by the time they get to customs, and because you're a business, you have to put it through a broker and all that kind of stuff. So you have now to pay the broker fee along with the shipping fee, and then customs hit you with a, I don't even want to say it, but I think you all would have known or experienced that by now, what customs can do to you and do to your pocket, where sometimes persons would have spent, say, for example, $500 on an import, which would include the shipping and everything else. And by the time customs charge them, they charge them $600, $700, $800 more than what they initially purchased. And it's frustrating to say the least, because our entrepreneurs in general are not supported as much as they should be by the government in terms of these policies. Larger corporations get away because they have more money. Things come in, they hardly hit them with a price tag. They go about the business, but the smaller practitioners, we are the one that feels the brunt of those duties. And then competition. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate in the Federation that there are persons that will see you have a product and see something that comes out, looks good and looks like you're making money off of it. Mind you, you just come out and it looks like you're making money. You're not really making money. You might just be breaking even, right? You might just be breaking even, but they say, oh, it looks like she's making money and think, what are you going to do with what it is she going to do? And instead of coming out with something just as good, they come in with something that is subpar. And unfortunately, what subpar competition does is reduce the value of your product. And persons, like, how should I say? Persons would think that just because that person's product is subpar, that yours is subpar too, and then you start losing business, no matter how good your product is, right? And then reduce resources, whether it's natural due to climate change and other matters, or it is man-made, such as theft, which is a big thing, especially when you're dealing with business these days. Theft is huge, or a loss of labor. Okay, so let's get creative, and this is going to be your homework, right? So I want you to bring this in to me on Thursday. Let's get creative. If you already have a business, use it. So produce an agribusiness idea, give it a name, describe the product, and why did you choose that business? Simple. Simple. And you all would have already indicated some things in the last activity that we had that is similar. So it's just to put it, to concrete it, right? As much as possible. And we'll give, for the next session on Thursday, I'll give about a half an hour to this activity and try to get as many people's, you know, participating, and let everybody have a fair exchange as much as possible without trying to go over the time. All right. So any questions? That's the end of tonight's presentation. Any questions you have for me? Or if you do and you don't want to say it here, you could always email me. You can get my email address, okay? And send me your questions there. So any questions? Go ahead. Any questions? Okay, go ahead, Jody.
It's not so much of a question, but a concern, right?
Yes.
So my concern now in terms of my business is how to, you know, I do try to maximize my time, but how to manage my time and, you know, manage the production load, you know, given that it's not my main job, you know, and so, but I still have the passion for it, and I want to invest all of, you know, this energy and resources and so into it. But what I'm finding is I am kind of running out of time to get all these things done. Yeah. So is it that I'm going to have to now think about hiring somebody to, you know, manage certain parts of it? I mean, last 1 minute or something like that. That's where I'm going to have to head. Or I have to try to think towards that.
In all honesty, maybe not now directly, but at some point in time in the future, it is something to be considered, right? What I can suggest to you, and Violet Clark did this, is that she had during like summer and Easter and so on, she would get interns, quote unquote interns, for when school is out, 1 or 2 persons. You're teaching them at the same time, they're helping you, right? Give them a little stipend. Doesn't have to be anything major, that you can afford, $100 or $200, whatever it is. And that way, if push come to shove now and say you are doing stuff for like Culturama, and that's a very hectic time for you, and Christmas, you have these 2 youngins, so to speak, or 1 or 2 youngins, so to speak, that you could call and say, okay, you could come by me on Wednesday and help me with this production aspect, or you could come by me on the weekend and help me. So you don't have them there every day of the week, right? But you just have them there when you need them.
Yeah, another thing is, thank you for that. Another thing is, I'm not really sure what my business model is. I guess you'll get into that, you know, help with that as we go along.
Yes.
But I am very particular about my product, right? So you see how you're saying to get somebody trained and, you know, that type of thing?
Yes.
We still want to be doing the do. You know, if you understand what I mean, like,
yeah, no, I fully understand. And I'm not telling you to give up directly. I'm not telling you to directly like hand over, right? But you will still be there guiding. So you would be doing most of this. For example, you would make the juice, but they would do the bottling. You understand?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's very that I mean, I think that would be simple enough for them to do.
Yeah. And label and so.
Exactly. So you will still be doing, but they would
actually have my daughter labeling, but don't tell social services on me. So you know that helps.
Don't worry about that.
I understand what you mean.
My daughter helps me too. She's my assistant on my runs too. So don't worry about it.
All right. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any more questions or statements? All right, thanks for that input about the broiler meeting. Yep, we do not have any testing for the imported goods that we have here, unfortunately. Even though customs does come and inspect the containers, health department is really and truly supposed to come and take samples, right? But they are not up to date and frequent with it. And depending on who the importer is, they just disregard it completely. And that is for the major supermarkets. I can say that for sure. Okay, any idea when is the field trip? No. I have to coordinate with Keithlin and so on, but I will get back to you on that information because I really want to expose you guys to at least 1 person. I don't know if you guys would know Violet Clark. She's also a graduate of the program, and she also won a competition, Taiwanese business pitch competition last year, and she went off to represent the federation actually, and so on. I would like, but the thing is, they still produce at home, so it's limited space. So I'm waiting for confirmation of that, and then we'll work out the logistics of that. Okay, so we'll get back to you on that one. So she's one of the options. I'm working on 2 others. So you'll have a field trip. We'll have a field trip. All right, any more questions? Okay, Antoinette. I am in Nevis. My contact information, I'm going to put my email address now for all of those who would like it. And you can email me. And then we move from there. Okay? Any more questions, suggestions, statements? You're welcome. Yes, Indira. So if you all have suggestions, I've already got, like I said, I have 3 already, so I can add the vanilla farm to that list, and then we work out the details and logistics, because obviously we'd have to make sure that those from Syncits are accommodated for appropriately. Any more input? You're welcome. Any more input? Or that's it for the evening? All right, great job, everybody. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Very enthusiastic. I love your participation. I love it, I love it, I love it. And then have a good evening, and make sure that, I hope for those of you who don't have power, who are on your phones, a few of you are on your phones, I hope you get back power soon, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday, and have a wonderful evening. All right? Okay, you can log off. Bye. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Tracy. I will try.